Take your hand off the wheel. It is not and has never been directly connected to the drive shaft. You can do much worse than accepting the hand you are dealt and playing it to the hilt.
Am I responsible for what happens in my life? Sanhia on the illusion of control.
Good now.
Am I responsible for what happens in my life?
This is one of the areas of greatest confusion for the spiritual seeker. The belief that is present, that has been learned and programmed, that is probably embedded in the DNA, that has been there through lifetimes and through civilizations, is that your choices and actions make the difference in your life. The teaching is that you are responsible. You are to decide what you want in life, what you want to do, how you want to be, and then you put that into action. Let's just be open for a moment to that actually being possible. That is, that you decide what you want and then manifest it in the world. If that were the case, would you create unhappiness, conflict, or pain? Would there be war or poverty? The answer to those questions is quite obvious. People don't plan and wish for such things. They likely have other things in mind when choosing futures and making plans. So, if you are responsible, if your thoughts and desires create what happens, how can such conflicting results be explained? I can see two ways that attempts might be made to justify these results. One is to decide that you must not be very talented at creating what you want, that somehow you allow disparate thoughts or actions to creep in that are not aligned with what you really want. Secondly, perhaps, you simply don't have that power. You have been programmed to believe that you do, or at least that you should possess such abilities. If we look at failure to realize your goals as a weakness on your part, it begs the question of whether that failure is your intention. Is it your plan to fail? Or do you simply notice that the lack of success happens and blame yourself or perhaps others? Logically, it makes more sense to assume that you do not have the power to control your world. The mind might argue that sometimes you make a plan and things happen nearly as you wanted them to. Does that happen every time? Ask yourself honestly if it even happens most of the time. If your response to this question is in the affirmative, then keep working your magic. For the rest of you, there must be something else going on here.
Some spiritual teachings says that you can listen to one of two voices, the voice of ego or the voice of spirit. Am I responsible for that choice?
This opens us up to many questions. One of those is that if you listen to and act from the voice you have identified as spirit or God or love, will things work out as you hope they will?
Not necessarily. And I wonder if this is really what God wants. Can it really be the will of God if it feels so uncomfortable to me?
You have stated a second question. How do you know what the voice of God is saying? How can you be sure it's not that wily ego voice?
It's not possible to be sure.
Once again, you're in a position where you are the one seemingly making this choice, and you, therefore, feel responsible for the outcome. Did you listen to the right voice? And even if you did, are you still responsible for the result? Or can you now blame God if you guessed right, but things didn't work out as you hoped they would?
I have no clue what God's will or plan is. That doesn't seem possible. Maybe when things come to some sort of crisis, we surrender and realize we just aren't able to choose what should be.
One thing that often happens when you choose and take responsibility for that choice is that if things work out the way you hoped they would, you pat yourself on the back and think you've done a good job. If things don't work out in what you consider to be a satisfactory way, you then blame yourself. You decide you didn't do a good enough job, or you blame others or God for this failure. As we suggested earlier, this lack of positive results is much more likely to be the result you experience. So, you spend most of your time with a sense of failure and guilt, or in a place of victimhood and anger. What if what happens is not determined by your choice and action, that you are not responsible for it? If that is the case, there is no reason for self-congratulations or for blame. You are not responsible.
Oh, that could be a relief.
It can be a tremendous relief. Now, let's look at the mechanics of what goes on. When you have convinced yourself or have been programmed to believe that you are responsible for your decisions, that they determine what happens, your mind focuses totally on these choices. It leaves out the 10,000 other variables that are a part of what is. Let's give an example. Say that you make the choice to attend a spiritual group. Your intention for doing this was to awaken to the truth of yourself. You believe that you had the power to make that choice. But let's look more deeply at this choice to really investigate it. How did you become aware of the opportunity to attend this event? Maybe you heard about it from a friend, or saw a poster, or heard about it online. Did you have the intention to find out about this meeting? Was that planned? No, it just happened. You are not responsible for creating this opportunity. When that choice did become available to you, what made you say yes? Perhaps you had previous experiences that made you open to this one. Did you choose those opportunities coming to you? And what came before them and before them? Likely there was a time in the past where you would not have chosen to say yes to this spiritual event. You are constantly being reprogrammed by life experiences. Most other people have not been programmed to be drawn toward such an event. Some of you, whether you call it your DNA, past lives, or whatever, came into this life with a predisposition toward the spiritual. Are you responsible for that? For others, it may have been the farthest thing from your mind, but life pushed you in that direction. In either case, where is the choice? Maybe your parents were an influence toward exploring divinity. Do you remember choosing your parents?
No.
Maybe you had a parent who was so abusive that in trying to heal yourself from all the pain you feel from that childhood, you were guided in a spiritual direction. Did you choose that spiritual direction? No. You were choosing to heal, and that's what appeared. You didn't choose the abusive childhood experience, and it seemingly led to a spiritual direction. Where is the choice? Where is the responsibility? This just appeared to happen. Returning to your attendance at the spiritual group, are you responsible for that, even after becoming aware of it? What if a friend had called yesterday and you decided instead to meet with them? Maybe you wake up sick. Maybe you oversleep. Maybe your car doesn't start, or you run out of gas, or get into a minor accident on the way. Look at all the things that needed to happen in this universe to get you to this workshop today.
Most of the time, we think we are the center of what's happening, and things happen from our choice. Now, you suggest that there is something else making the decision.
We could identify what believes it is in control and is responsible as the ego mind. But it isn't in control. All these other factors exist along with the ego mind. As a pointer, we could say that everything in the universe is interconnected. The ego thinks that it did something and therefore a result occurred. But there were 10,000 things happening at the same time. All contributed to what happened. There's never a single cause nor a single effect, but a ripple, a constant movement, an interconnectedness of everything. We could call that the oneness. We could call it divinity. We could call it not two-ness. We could call it God. There are many names. You can have the thought that there is a meaning behind all of this, that the multiplicity of happenings is conspiring to bring about certain results. Perhaps there is a method to the madness, but how could you ever know?
Oh, that's a problem. You can never know.
But is there a need to know? If you don't have the ability to affect and change what happens, what good would it do to have understanding?
It is a relief.
If it is simply what is happening, let it happen. What else is there to do?
So, are you saying that it doesn't matter what I do or don't do? Why even bother to do anything then?
Good question. I'm sorry if I misled you. I didn't say that it doesn't matter. What was said was that you don't have control. You don't determine the outcome. But you are one of the 10,000 things that are happening. It's not that your action doesn't matter. It's just never the sole determinant. And whatever you do also likely comes out of your pre-programming rather than out of an uncluttered, informed choice in the moment. You make a programmed choice. Notice what happens, and that goes into your programming. You are constantly being reprogrammed, and so your choices may change over time. Still, your action or thought is but one factor in determining what happens. There is no rightness or wrongness about these choices. It's not your choice. You have no responsibility. Can a computer make an error? It may malfunction, but it can only act in accordance with its programming.
When you say this, I wonder what the reason is for me being here. Is there something special I should learn? Why am I here?
You reach out for understanding because the ego mind demands a basis for separating right from wrong. It believes that it is responsible. When you ask this question, you are jumping over the fact that you are. You exist. You are aware of what happens around you. You are not the creator of what is. You are the experiencer of it. You may think that you are choosing and responsible. You observe yourself believing that you are in control. As you become aware that you are not in control, that your choices are probably not freely chosen, but are programmed, you may notice that you choose what feels best to you. Perhaps at this point we could suggest the word preference rather than choice. If there is any meaning to be found, it will be discovered in the observing, in the awareness of what is unfolding. The meaning of life, if there is any, is not connected with your ability to make decisions and to take responsibility. It can only be determined by paying attention to what is already happening. What an adventure such an investigation can be. You are a part of the whole, not the center. What happens when you stop feeling responsible?
Maybe there is some humbleness that emerges, along with some trust that what is happening is as it should be. If I have resistance to what is, I can have something to look at. Why am I not accepting?
A trap here can be that the mind decides it has to be aligned with what is happening. This brings you back to responsibility. Now you are responsible for not being responsible.
It's really hard to take this in. What does it mean to not be responsible? It seems like there is some choice there that comes from me.
Yes, but how did it get into you? Is it your conscious creation? Where did this idea come from that you are absolutely responsible for what you call you?
That is more like programming, or the mass consciousness has spoken to me.
Let's say, for example, that you are born with natural athleticism, while another is born with little coordination or physical strength. Was it your choice to be a good athlete? Did they choose the opposite? Did you choose your level of intelligence? Did you choose to have more or less compassion, anger, depression, or happiness than another? I challenge you to look at all these things and find something that you actually chose. Yet these and a multitude of other qualities, both long-term and short-term, help determine the choices that you make today.
The word that comes up in my head now is pre-planning. Have I done a pre-planning for all these things?
Let's just assume that there was some pre-plan. Do you remember being involved with that pre-planning? Do you remember sitting down with Spirit or whomever and saying that you want this body and that nose, and that you want to be controlling or fearful, that you will have a spiritual curiosity? Do you remember choosing your parents, your children, or all of the people who would play major parts in your life? Do you remember planning successes and tragedies? Is there any memory of any of that?
When you say it like that, the answer would have to be a no.
Then how can you be responsible for any of it? If you have no conscious memory, it may or may not have happened. All that you know is that what is here now is here now. You can be aware of that, but have no responsibility for its existence. You cannot change that it is here now.
But mostly we don't go there with all of these questions. We just glide on the ice and think that we need to take control.
And you also think that other people are responsible. You think someone hurt your feelings. You give them a false sense of responsibility. You project that they have the power to control the world through inflicting pain on you. Perhaps they had that conscious intention and got lucky, but most likely they were trying to create something totally different and were oblivious to your feelings. As long as you hold on to personal responsibility, you're going to suffer. You will usually fail to achieve your goals, but even with seeming successes, your ego will go crazy, inflating its sense of accomplishment. That, of course, leads you to your next fall. Your awakening process cannot really begin until you accept the possibility that you aren't running the show, that neither you or others have any real power. No amount of hard work or self-discipline will ever allow you to take control.
So I have to stop listening to the mass consciousness?
However, if you are claiming that the mass consciousness is wrong and you are choosing differently.
Okay.
It's about not believing in choice, period, without making that a choice. Most spiritual paths encourage you to choose differently. The expressions offered here are not tenets of truth. They're simply pointers. Awareness may lead to less suffering, but choices are only likely to increase it. Awareness that choice leads to suffering might lead to an end of suffering, but that cannot come from choice. Choice is an adding on, while awakening is a letting go of everything but what is. Everything that you have no control over. The less responsibility you take, the less suffering you will have. So, when you stop choosing, will painful things stop happening? Absolutely not. Painful things might still happen. However, you will simply notice the presence of pain. There is no blame or projection because things just happen. You are not responsible. You don't have that power. There are no worries about what you have to do to prevent a repetition. The future is of no importance since you are not the cause. The past doesn't matter either. All that remains is this now. You can experience the pain while it is present. It will soon be replaced by or morph into something else. The suffering only comes from your false sense of responsibility.
But I want to be enlightened.
That will happen when it happens. You are not responsible for making it happen. So holding on to being the cause can only get in your way. Your preference to realize awakening has been expressed. Your work is done. The universe responds with, duly noted, let go. If enlightenment is a knowing of the oneness with all, and choosing comes from the separated self, how can an expression of separation lead to oneness? Continuing to exercise your independent will means a continuation of suffering. Enjoy your sleep.
But there is something. I can choose a spiritual path. So I need to step out of how it is in the word. There is a confusion there. I have to do something.
Who is this I who needs to do something? This is the one who believes it's separate from the whole. All it can create is more of a sense of separation. It has things backwards. There's nothing it has to do, only things to stop doing. Stop trying to be in charge. Let the world be as it is. Is there really any other choice? It's only denial and insanity that would think that the world can be other than it is right now. So, see what is there. Stop blaming and resisting. No guilt and no blame. You're not responsible for the good or the bad. Neither is God. Things are as they are and can be no other way. This is the oneness, and it is perfection. There is nothing for you to do other than have awareness and eventually gratitude. Anything else is an expression of not being aligned with the oneness, of being separate, of being asleep.
I'm aware that there is a belief that that isn't good, that I don't want that to happen. This keeps me from truly seeing the now.
Belief is no different from choice. Does your belief change anything? Let's say you believe that everyone should act kindly toward everyone else. Does that change how others act? Your beliefs have no power. If there is oneness, it exists whether or not you believe in it. If you believe that unkind acts will be punished by karma, do you witness that to be your day-to-day experience? When your beliefs do not prove themselves to be correct, there will be suffering. Let them go. There is the belief in right and wrong. How is that working for you?
It isn't working at all. It's like stones in my shoes. It causes pain with every step I take.
Again, these are not beliefs that I'm sharing with you. They're merely pointers. They're suggestions for things to look at, to try on. I suggest that if you look long enough and hard enough at the idea of your having personal responsibility, you will recognize the untruth of it. It's all a smokescreen.
I can see how letting go of that would be an enormous relief. What can I say to my fear of what might happen if I don't exercise choice?
Will that lead to meaninglessness, hopelessness, and despondency? Will that lead to a world where worse and worse things will happen because nobody is stepping up to take responsibility? All that I can say is that if you have reached a dead end with your attempt to be in control, what do you have to lose? If you still believe that you can make a difference, go and give it your best shot. You cannot make a mistake. There is no right and wrong. Maybe another day will come when you want to have this conversation again.
The word isn't like what you are saying. It's screaming out just the opposite.
That is so. We never have to worry about turning people away at the door. Here's one last game you can play. Look at a few things that you consider to be among the best things that have ever happened in your life, the most important and valuable events. Which ones did you plan and choose?
I didn't plan any of them.
Which of the events that you consider to be the worst did you plan and choose?
Oh, none of them.
So, you had no part in choosing any of the most profound things to happen in your life. If you look more deeply at those events that seemed the worst at the time, how many have since shown an upside, and in fact may now be considered as fortunate jewels that came your way? Perhaps the universe has always done the superior job in creation. Not really the superior job, but the only job. Take your hand off the wheel. It is not and has never been directly connected to the drive shaft. You can do much worse than accepting the hand you are dealt and playing it to the hilt. Good now.
If this touched your heart, subscribe and receive more light. This content is the creative work of Channels Without Borders, all rights reserved 2025. Visit channelswithoutborders.com. Feel free to share this with friends. More information and links are in the description.